Howdy y'all, I am Ice Gold, and today, wow, okay, good start. Right, today I am going to be making a tier list of every single shadow spell and scion in the game. Think of this as like an Arc 3 spell limits tier list, when the reality is it's more of a spring update tier list. Minus that count, of course, because we're not including that. And I have the wrong Raging Bull in here. I will fix that for any of y'all to use if you want to, but just know I will be going over the right one. So yeah, with that in mind, actually maybe I do have the right Raging Bull in here somewhere. Yeah, I do. it's just there's another one, so that's fine. I'll have to take that out, but you get the point. Anyway, so what we're doing today is we are going to be making a tier list for all of these. There are 83 files in here, but technically 82 once I get rid of the wrong Raging Bull. So that will be the plan for today. Anyway, I guess let us start off with Scion of Balance. This one, it's kind of an interesting one. Basically, it'll do honestly pretty good damage, and if you have 6 blades on you, it'll do 1950 balance damage. And one thing that I do want to mention that I should have at the beginning is that the reason why I have the PvE and PvP paths here is because I will be ranking the PvE paths based on how good they are in PvE, and then ranking the PvP paths at the exact same time. So that is the point of that. But anyway, Balance Scion. This one's kind of interesting. It doesn't take too much setup, and I think I will put it in the B tier. It's not necessarily the most practical card, but there are some niche uses for it, and Balance Scion for PvE, it's not bad. It's not bad. I'll say that. Yeah, I mean, with all of the scions, the PvE scions, I'm mostly going to be going over how easy they are to set up, and that is what's going to matter a ton as we go. So Balance Scion for the PvE path, it's a little out there, but I think I am going to put it in the B tier. So there's that. Anyway, Hungry Caterpillar. This is back to its old effect, so I did pull this one straight from the live game because Wiki hasn't updated yet. But Hungry Caterpillar's I guess original path. It's honestly a good hit for life wizards, and for a while it's not bad, but ultimately it is a single hit that doesn't do exorbitant amount of damage like the Balance Scion does, for example. So I think it's good at what it does, but ultimately I can't really put it any higher than B tier. It's like A and S are sort of reserved for like AoEs for when we're talking about PvE. So that is what's up there. So next up, we've got the PvP Scion of Death, and this one, it'll say it's got some flashy numbers here: 710 drain, or Gambit for curses for 1360 drain, but it does not do that after the drain nerf, and for that reason it's mostly a waste. You're better off using Avenging Fossil with 4 curses on your target. So this, I think, it is still a sizable drain, so I can't put it too low on this list, but I do think that C is where it's going to end up here. So there is that. The PvE Scion, on the other hand, this is a real hitter. This one is a very strong drain, and if you or the target are below 33% of your HP, then it will do double the damage. And this one is interesting because in some fights, like against the Wizard101 Wallaru, for example, you might get super low on health as a Death Wizard, and then you could just use this and probably win the fight just off of that. It's like getting low on health is your win condition as a Death Wizard in some of those fights. So I think for that reason, the PvE Scion is going to go into the A tier for the Death School. So pretty neat there. Fire from Above, this is kind of old FFA. I don't know, it's like just shy of 1,000 damage and a little fuel to go along with it. I personally think that this is a pretty good card, but it's going to end up in the same category as Hungry Caterpillar, where it's good at what it does, but ultimately is not a staple that you will see Fire Wizards using in their decks. I think it's good, but just, you know, it's not that guy. It's not an AoE or a Gambit, so there you go. B tier for FFA. Now, the PvE Scion of Fire, on the other hand, this one, I think, is going to go into the S tier, because where with the Death Scion, for the PvE version, you have to get low, or, you know, the target has to be low, but at that point, you know, you might as well just finish him off with another spell. The Scion of Fire for PvE, you can use, like, you can buff this up while you're setting it up. And what I mean by that is, it'll say Gambit 6 or more traps for the double damage condition, which is insane damage, by the way. 2300 is pretty strong. But this is in an interesting position, because, you know, if you fuel twice, you have it set up, and if there are two different fuels, then you automatically have an extra 2 buffs on it. So that alone really puts it up there in the S tier for me, and I think like this spell did carry my fire in the Wallaru Urk fights. So that is another thing to keep in mind. It is very, very helpful in situations like that. So Scion of Fire going to go into the S tier. The PvE path is. Alright, PvE path Grim Reader. This one is honestly, this one does a lot of damage. Wow, I didn't even really think about that. I think that the damage on it is enough to get it into the A tier. So, I mean, for those unaware, this, for 8 pips in a shad, does a massive amount of damage, let's be real. And it will put 2 25% weaknesses on the target. So this will, I mean, it already functions as just a pure hammer of a spell, but then it'll also weaken the target. So that is also pretty important. So yeah, I mean, Grim Reader, very, very strong. And I mean, it kind of breaks that thing that I was saying earlier, where I would just put AoEs and Gambits up here. But Grim Reader is kind of that guy. I mean, it does that much damage. That's, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm getting at there. So the PvP path, on the other hand, this one, it's decent, and I want to say it's honestly a good shad for Death Wizards in PvP. But yeah, it's definitely not what it was. What it was would have gotten it into the S tier, but it is not that anymore, so it's going to go in the A tier. Still very good. It's just not like a Thanos snap anymore. And, you know, that's why PvE Grim Reader is up here, because it's like, I hold PvE spells to like a different sort of standard, where it's like AoE spells are going to be taking precedent there. But yeah, I mean, a spell like this is still good enough to land up here. Whereas the PvP path, good, but used to be better. That's kind of what I'm getting at. Alright, Scion of Ice. The PvE version, I think, is going to go in the D tier. I don't really need to talk too much about that. It is a strong hit, but it's like the double damage conditional here is having 90% of your health still remaining, and you just won't have that like ever. So there you have that. Scion of Ice definitely going to be in the D tier. Alright, so I named this last tier down here at the bottom Wings of Fate, expecting that to be the only card in there, but I completely forgot about Life Scion, so that's going to go there. The PvE Life Scion is going to go there, and you don't need to be Einstein to see why. So there's that. Call of Krulu is up next. This is a death spell, 5 pips in a shad, to do 385 drain damage, and put a minus 30% outgoing damage negative aura on the target for 4 rounds. This is fundamentally ass. It's like bro, it's so weak, and an aura is just not gonna be good like that. Like, you might as well, like, there are better cards to use negative auras with as a death. So Next up is going to be Scion of Myth. This one I think is going to go into the A tier for the same reason Scion of Death is. It's very easy to set up. You just need 3 or more stun shields on you, or if the target is stunned, to get the double damage conditional, and it'll do a ton of damage. This one I'm basically just putting up here because it's very, very easy to set up, and it just does mass. So, yeah, there's that. Scion of Myth, pretty easy call to put it in the A tier. Alright, PE Kisma. Honestly, it doesn't do bad damage necessarily, but it is still a divide spell. Not really huge on that. But PvP Kisma, this is an interesting one. I personally really like this because it is a hit and double 45 blade. It's like if Death had catch, pretty much, for like 1 fewer pip. And that alone, it's like the damage is kind of meat, but, you know, it's still 2 45 blades. Like, that's a little tough to argue with, in my honest opinion. So, Kisma, I think, is going to go in the A tier for that. PvP Dark and Stormy. This one, I don't know how to feel about this one. This one is sort of, it's like the counters to it aren't going to be as prevalent since it's just 1 heal over time. But if you get gearheaded, it's very, very bad for you. So, and it's like at that point you would just use your Salka. So I think on principle it's decent. I'll put it in the B tier, but yeah, I mean, otherwise it's not the greatest, and I do think that Rusalka does outclass it. And speaking of Rusalka, we have this version of Rusalka, which we've only ever seen in teasers because it made it 2 days into Test Realm before they found out that these auras never expired. So how about that? So Rusalka's Wrath has been bugged for a month, technically as I'm speaking right now, because the devs, for some reason, don't know how to fix it. So Rusalka's Wrath, I am still going to rank it though, because once it is fixed, this is going to be an absolute menace of a card. This is going to be the type of thing that we see every school use. It once Catch of the Day gets nerfed. I do want to make sure that's clear. Once Catch of the Day gets nerfed, we are going to see Rusalka's Wrath probably take its place, because this, it's gonna be like, god damn it, my chair keeps hitting this thing on my nightstand. God damn it, did I drop my keys somewhere? I'll find them later. Unless they're under my chair, that would be very bad if they were. No, they're not. Alright. Very cool. But then where are my keys if they are not on the floor somewhere? Oh, I see them. Alright. Little side jaunt on the iSkull channel today. Anyway, so where was I? Rusalka's Wrath. Okay, so this is going to be, I mean, a 40% chromatic outgoing damage aura once you use it, and it does pretty good damage on its own. Like, this is a shad to look at once the aura bug gets fixed. So this absolutely going to be an S tier spell. I mean, like, bro, it's like they either have the attenuate or they don't, and yeah. If they don't, you're hitting them with a very, very strong hit. So there's that. Old One's Endgame, the PvP version, ass, but it's not, I guess, fully terrible, I guess. Maybe. I don't know. I still don't think there's any reason you would ever use this. Mockenspiel, I didn't think was going to be great, but it has actually been seeing some use. Because for balance, you know, it's a hit and double 35 weakness. That's honestly not bad at all. And hey, I mean, it comes in handy once in a while for balances. Let me some water. Even though this city's water is absolutely nasty. PvP Scion of Balance. This is one of the cards of all time. It's like, you can't get 11 pips against a balance, because otherwise they'll drop this on your head for 4,000 damage, and you don't want to take 4,000 damage. So, yeah. Scion of Balance. Going to go in the S tier just because it's massive for the conditional that it has attached to it. Sandworm, yeah, I mean, I don't think it's Wings of Fate tier. I think we are going to save this specifically for the ones that are actually that bad, but for all of the hit and double universal traps, I think they're all going to go in the D tier. Just because, like, a hit and universal trap is just not great at all. So there's that. Nested Fury, this one is also bugged, but they're, I guess, working on it. But it basically does the same thing as Kraloo, just does, honestly, a lot more damage. And, yeah, I mean, I think for that reason, I will put it in the C tier, just because it's not totally terrible. And, I mean, you can use it just as a hit, but I still don't think I would use it personally, because Balance has way better cards. And speaking of Balance having way better cards, we have PvP Gaze of Fate. And I hope that this is the right version. I don't know. I think I'll have to replace this, because the PvP version of Gaze of Fate does have these damage values, and it is a hit and bubble for 1 shad and 5 pips, but one thing that's very important is that this question mark should say chromatic, because on live roam right now it does do chromatic damage, which means as a bubble changer this hit is absolutely amazing, and it's another very strong spell that Balance has in their arsenal for PvP. So very, very good. Yeah, I mean, Gaze is just, it's a very good card, and this kind of hit and bubble is what Balance has needed for quite some time. It's like the only thing missing from their arsenal, or it was the only thing missing from their arsenal for many years, but there you go. Shatterhorn is up next. This one, I think I'm going to put it in the C tier. It's Mock and Spiel, but for Ice, and with Ice, you know, you've got to be... It's like Ice just doesn't do damage, and where you could maybe use a Mock and Spiel to get maybe, I don't know, 1,000 to 1,500 damage off, you're not getting that with Shatterhorn as an Ice. So I think for that reason, it's like Mock is a hit and utility type card. Shatterhorn is like a shield breaker and utility type card, which makes it worse because it's got a shad attached to it, and Ice really needs pips for everything that we do. So it's not the worst, but I think I am going to leave it in the C tier. PvP Penguins, yep. PvP Climacalism. This one, to be honest, it's a 4-pip hit and double 70 chromatic shield. That is good, but the counters are better. And that, I think, is where the problems arise with it. And because it is basically just a Path B Volcanic Golem with a shad attached to it, and the shad is going purely into the 70 shields. But it's like one Fire Elf and this card gets undone. But if Fire Elf wasn't as insane as it is, this card I think would go up a tier, but because the counters are too good for shields at the moment, I am going to put Path B Climacalism in the B tier. Just because, on principle, 70% chromatic shields for only 4 pips, very good, but it's just way, way, way too easy to counter right now. So there's that. A-Bomb for 5 pips does the same, and I think because of the pip cost going up, that is grounds to put it all the way in the D tier, because you're spending more pips for marginally more damage just for Fire Elf to own you again. So there's that. Need I say more? PvP Ice Scion. This one is a fun one. It's a shield gambit, so easily it's going to go up in the S tier. But honestly, for PvE, now that we can use this in PvE, like, I am going to make good use of this when I get to Wallaru. I'm going to tell you that much. I'm going to be setting up Scions, like shield gambit Scions, and it's going to be so fun. So, yeah, I mean, this is just, it's such a big help, and there's such a difference between the D tier version, or the PvE version, and the, I guess, well, you can use them both in PvE, but the Path B version versus the Path A, it's like the disparagement is massive, because shield gambits just in general are so good, and I'm glad that they've come to PvE, so pretty neat. Freeze Ray. This is basically just Shatterhorn if it was worse. S'more Machine. This one, it's kind of an interesting one. It's a little niche though. If this was a double dot and double hot, I would say it would be cool, and it would probably be like A-ish, but it is not a double hot, so yeah, it's like where you could threaten an Ifrit and a Rain of Fire at the same time if it was a double, if it was like a double-double, you know what I mean? You can only really threaten a good Ifrit out of it, and yeah, I mean, there's that. So it can be good, but ultimately it is just really not that great at all. Blast Off, yeah, I mean, this one at least does some upfront damage, so it won't end up in the Wings of Fate tier, but its PvE counterpart will not be so lucky. The Path B Fire Scion. This one is very strong, I'm gonna say it. It's like, if Ifrit wasn't as good as it is, like, everybody would just be using this, because it's a hammer for only 7 pips, and all you need down are 3 dots, and that's really easy with the Amit Fusion. So 3 dots on the target for, 1680 fire damage is pretty strong, and yeah, I mean, it's just a very, very good card. So Fire Scion, the B path, definitely going to go up here. Fire Scion, just in general, I mean, both versions get up here into the S tier, so that's when you know this card is absolutely cracked. Raging Bull. Okay, so I'm gonna skip this one because it is the wrong version, and I need to take it out so that y'all can use it. Fire from Above, the PvP path. This one is very, very good, and I feel like if storm matchups were able to last a little longer, this card would really swing those violently toward the fire. But if you're going against like a death, for example, and the death is for some reason countering overtime, so storm pips, and deaths really should be using fire weave, but still, my point stands. Anyway, for this, it's like if you're going against a death and they are on top of their counters for dots, then a fire will naturally want to switch to traps, and a card like this, which does honestly some pretty good damage, it's a little more than Brim, but the main deal is the 255 traps. You can't, like this is an insane card for that reason. It's like it's a hit and double 55 trap, which is just completely mental, and if it did any more damage, I'd put it in the S tier. Like, that's how good it is. So this just really augments Fire's trap identity just even more, and makes it even stronger with that. So that's this version of Fire from Above definitely going to get into the A tier. Okay, so this is Path B Scion of Storm. I'm not a fan of this. Like, it can do big damage, but it's like with PvE Fire Scion's case, you're buffing it up before it actually hits. It doesn't gambit the traps until after, by the way, so just something to keep in mind. Whereas this will gambit the blades before. It does do good damage, don't get me wrong, but if you're like gambiting away some of your buffs before the hit, it's like that's not as good. So Scion of Storm, Path B, I think I am going to put down here in the C tier. Iron Sultan is another one that is bugged, but I do think that it will be very good once it's fixed, because this is like the inverse to Rusalka. Honestly, it only does half the damage, so maybe I should put it a little lower, but ultimately it'll do kind of meat damage for a storm spell, let's be real, but then it will put a negative 40% outgoing chromatic damage aura on the target for 4 rounds. That's pretty good. This is like a 40% weakness that you can't take off unless you have another aura. So, I mean, it's good. Like this is a good like immobilization card. So it's like that Hecate fusion, but maybe better. We're gonna have to see how that looks. Sound of Musicology is up next, and selective target, 645 damage and 240% chromatic blades. Right now I'm going to put it in the D tier, but if Catch is to get nerfed, then I think we could see it maybe rise up to B. So I think call it this if Catch gets nerfed, but for the time being, D tier. Alright, Glowbug Squall is up next, and this one, I don't know how to feel about this one. It actually does pretty decent damage, and the 2 30 weeks are good, but yeah, it doesn't really see a whole lot of use, and for a good reason, so there's that. Hungry Caterpillar, I'll put that one in the B tier, same as its Speedy counterpart, but the PvP path does not so good damage, which is why it's low, but the heal is honestly pretty strong, so that is what will put it up in the B tier. It's like for Life Wizards, this is pretty strong. It's a pretty good card to have in their arsenal. It's like Goat Monk, but better, I guess, which is what they were going for that. Okay, next up we've got PvP Path Grenadier. This is like a poor man's Raging Bull. I'm gonna be real, it's gonna go in the D tier. Next up is PvP Scion of Life. This is better than its PvE counterpart, but not by much, because you'll need 3 heal overtimes on you to deal, honestly, not a ton of damage, but maybe it can be useful, like if you were to rebirth into this maybe, but still. Next up is Lamasu, and once this bug gets fixed, it'll be good. But for the time being, the damage on it, it's not necessarily great, but the 45% outgoing damage aura, life specific, is pretty good, and that's what's going to get it up into the A tier, in my honest opinion. It's like it's a hit and like 45 buff, so you got to be careful with that. So, alright, next up, Lord of the Jungle. I have actually seen this one get some use. It's like a Luminous Weaver, but better. So, I think for that reason, I'll put it up in the B tier. It's not bad at all. But still, I mean, Luminous Weaver is still, in my opinion, more of a staple to have than this. Alright, next up, yeah, this is the B path, I believe. And this is kind of what I wish S'more Machine was, but the problem is life cannot make the same use of it that, or of this concept that fire can. So, I don't know, maybe if you're like a liar, L-I-R-E, question mark, then you can make some good use of it, because, you know, you send this out, and then you can threaten an Ifrit or a Rain of Fire. That's just how I feel about it. I know Cass is trying to do something like that with his deck on his life, so I don't know, could be cool, but yeah. Snake Charmer, do I even put this in the D tier? I guess I'll put Blast Off here, so sure. But Bomb Dots, just as a concept, as we know, are terrible. So, yeah, I mean, there's that. Next up, we've got Scion of Myth, and where, you know, Scion of Storm, the B path on that one kind of got away with, you know, having good damage despite gambiting away your buffs. Myth Scion doesn't. I think I'm going to put that in the D tier just because of that. It does less damage, considerably less damage, as a matter of fact. It's like 500 less, just because they value blades and traps a little differently. So, with that in mind, yeah, Myth Scion definitely going to end up at the D tier. Especially because if you're thinking about using this type of card in PvE, then, I mean, you already have the PvE Myth Scion, which is A tier, for good reason. So there's that. Mystic Colossus, steal 4 shields, and then do meat damage. I don't think I need to talk about that much. This one, which is how it's called, the New Yaga, is honestly, it's not terrible, but I definitely would not use it over Barbarian Saga. That is the new Myth Shad, without a doubt. I mean, it's a hit and double regular dot. And those dots aren't, like, bad either. Like, that's doing 500 damage almost over 4 rounds. So this is honestly a very high value hit, and it is Myth's staple Shad at the moment. So Myth absolutely does need this. It's not game breaking in any way, I don't think, but it is still very, very good. Tatzel are going to go in the D tier for the same reason all the hit and double 40 traps are. Snack Attack, this honestly, okay, so I think this is the first, like, AoE that we've seen for PvE cards. This will push a weakness, which is already very good utility, and then it'll do some pretty good damage. Like, this does do quite a bit more than Scarecrow, so Snack Attack definitely going up into the S tier. Its PvP version, on the other hand, will be going down here for the same reason as Mystic Colossus. So there's that. Although it does do more damage, so who knows? Maybe in a mirror, but yeah, not the greatest. PvE A-Bomb. I do like this card a lot, but I do think that once we get to PvE Shatterhorn, that's just going to take its plot, take its plot, right? Take its place and spot at the same time. So yeah. Otherwise, A-Bomb, it's not a bad card by any means. I like it. It's a hit and shield. It has saved me before on my Was on a Budget series, so that's pretty cool. Then we have this Barbarian Saga. This, I think, also belongs in the A tier, personally, just because it's like, for the same reason as Grim Raider, really. I mean, it's a very good 8-pip hit, And although, you know, it does lose a considerable amount of damage to the bomb dot attached to it, it is still very, very strong for a myth single target hit. So, Barbarian Saga, I do like it quite a bit. I will put it up here. And actually, I just realized we have the regular Baba Yaga to go over, so maybe not. Maybe I'll put this in the B tier, just because, and now that I'm thinking about it, the enchant does divide, so you can't get the same value on it as you would a Grim, but it would be worthy of A tier if the bomb dot was even any other utility. So let's just be honest there. PvE Blast Off, it's going down here for the same reason as everybody knows, bro. Like, this is just one big bomb dot, and yeah, I mean, bomb dots already suck ass. You've seen me put 2 of them down here in the D tier. So yeah, I mean, otherwise Blast Off is just ass. Climaclysm, not great, I will say that. Yeah, better hits is nice. Dark and Stormy's PvE path. This one, okay, this I think I will say can go up here, because this, it does 1400 damage. That's strong. That's very strong. So I think, yeah, absolutely. I mean, Dark and Stormy does deserve to be up here in the A tier. Like, this and Grim, I think, are going to be the only, like, 8-pip single target hits that you're going to see up here, just because they are honestly just that good. So, I mean, what more can I say about that? Dark and Stormy, very, very strong, and the healing is nothing to scoff at either. I mean, it is a good amount of healing on that, but you don't use it for the healing, you use it for the damage. It's very strong. So, next up, we've got Freeze Ray, and this is honestly a staple AoE for Ice, and I realize I did not actually download the A path for Snowball Barrage. So, while we're thinking about that, I just want y'all to know Snowball Barrage's path A easily goes into the S tier. So, yeah, it just now hit me. Very sad, very unfortunate, is what it is. But, yeah, Freeze Ray, it does mostly the same thing. It's just a very, very strong AoE hit. Very good for Ice. So there you go, S tier. Gaze of Fate's PvE path. This, I mean, yeah, I mean, I would never use Gaze of Fate outside of PvP. So, yeah, I mean, it's just not great in PvE. I'll say that. Glowbug Squall. I think this will go in the A tier. There are technically better AoEs which you can use for, like, for Storm with a Shad attached to them, but yeah, Glowbug Squall, it's extremely good for when you have it. So yeah, A tier I think is where it's going to end up. It just gets outclassed is my thing with that. Grenadier, this one, I think I will put this in the B tier. Yeah, to be honest, I think I will. Just because once we get to Lord of the Jungle, I'll explain it better there. But bottom line, it's like, it's just not big enough of a damage difference between it and its AoE. So that's what I'm getting at there. Iron Sultan's PvE path. I think I'll put it in the B tier. I mean, it is strong for 4-pip Shad, and it's like, that's kind of all that they are. So yeah, I mean, Sultan, obviously, you know, things like Rusalka are going to outclass it, but for its pip cost, it's very, very good, and I think I'll put it in the B tier for that reason. Lamasu, probably going to go down here, same as Climaclysm, just not good on the damage. That's, it's like not all schools are created equal, right? Lord of the Jungle, though, this is going to be an S tier card for the Life School. This one is very, very good. It does just shy of 900 damage to all, and it is Life's only usable AoE outside of Horse Lord. So there you have that. So yeah, yeah, kind of tragic about that, but it is very, very good at what it does. So 900 damage, almost, very strong, and I would honestly, yeah, I mean, it's just way better than Grenadier. Mockenspiel, this one honestly does do quite a bit more than Grenadier, but I think that its damage does not necessarily set it apart enough to put it in the A tier. So Market Spiel, A path, I'll put that in the B tier. Very strong single hit for balance, but yeah, I mean, at that point, or actually, no. Old Ones Endgame is coming up. So, alright. A path, or I guess PvE path, Mystic Colossus. It's decent, but the damage on it just kind of sucks. So, that's my reasoning for that. Nested Fury. This is going to be an S tier card. This, like, and let's talk about Old Ones Endgame as well. I do think that Old Ones Endgame does belong in the S tier, but it's like, because both of these are staple cards for balance is kind of what I'm getting at. It's just, Old Ones Endgame, it's just, I mean, if the bomb dot wasn't there, it would be so much better. But yeah, I mean, otherwise, like, Nested has higher potential and lower potential with the ice hit, as well as hitting into resist. That's another whole thing with Nested. While Old Ones Endgame is much more consistent, but weaker, I guess. So there you have that. You don't have to worry about resist as a balance wizard. Is kind of what I'm getting at. Next up, we've got PvE Path Raging Bull. This is going to take Fire's S tier AoE spot because Blastoff ended up at the other side of the tier list. So how about that? And it's not hard to see why this is up here. Very good AoE card. Up to 900 damage and a mantle, so pretty neat. Now, for this demon, yeah. This, even though it's it got nerfed, and this is the unnerfed version that we have down here. It used to, back in Test Realm, it would detonate 3 dots for 160%. Now it only detonates 2 dots for 160%. But this is still very good, and this is your win condition in the Fire versus Balance matchup. So there you have that. It's like a mini Incendiate, kind of. So that's what I'm getting at there. Next up is Rusalka's Wrath, and I think I'll put this in the B tier. Dark and Stormy just outclasses it, and yeah, I mean, the blade, it is just random. So there you go. It's like, yeah, I mean, it does do 50 more. Actually, it may not, because I have this. I think this is the tier 3 version of Dark and Stormy, so it may do more. But overall, yeah, I mean, Rusalka, it's good, but damn, man, I think I am going to put it in the A tier after all. It's like, I don't think the max version of Dark and Stormy does more than Rusalka, so as a single target, like hammer type hit, I do think Rusalka does at least deserve to go up in the A tier. Sandworm, Scorching Scimitars, I'll put that in the C tier just because its damage is a little higher. Shatterhorn, though, this is a big one for Ice. It is better than Abominable Weaver, but yeah, ultimately, it's just the same thing as Grenadier. It's a single target hit, and you have Snowball Barrage anyway, so yeah, Snowball Barrage, again, like I said, gonna go at the top of the S tier, just for the easiest reason. I mean, it is now the most powerful AoE in the game. With its Spellman path upgrades, it can go up to, I think, 115 damage per pip, which is pretty insane. So yeah, it's like for Ice, having a strong single hit like this matters even less. So that's where we're at there. Some more Machine. This one, good damage. Actually, really good damage. I think I will put that in the A tier. It's like, this is where I'll put like the absolute strongest single target hit for every school if it like clears a certain bar. And I think for that, I'm gonna say if it clears like 1175 and some good utility, so that's what I'll say for that. Snake Charmer, sure, I'll put it at C tier just for having more damage. Sound of Musicology, definitely going to go in the S tier. Mass damage, very strong blade coming out of it, so pretty good. Tatzelworm Terror, I will say that this is the tier 3 version. The tier 5 version does do 700 to 840, so you can finally have a Shad hit as a myth as of the spring update that does more than Orthrus. So isn't that a treat? or at least can consistently either be on par or more than Orthrus's damage. So pretty neat, and the confuse mechanic is quite nice as well sometimes. Alright, next up we have Witch's House Call, and this one I will put in the B tier. Yeah, it's doesn't quite clear that 1175, but still pretty good. I will say that. I know I did say I was gonna put this in the A tier, but yeah, just it's not as high of a damaging card that I would put it up there. But that's my take on it. Now this one is this one's pretty insane. If you're going first as a Storm, this is your card. Like, this card is absolutely groundbreaking. I mean, this is the highest damaging card in the entire game if you have the conditional. If your target does not have a blade or any form of charm on, they get Thanos snapped. That's all that needs to be said about it. They get Thanos snapped. So there you go. 2840 storm damage. And I mean, it is not hard to see why this is such a good card. So that's where I'll leave it. And Winged Sorrow, I think I'm gonna put it in the C tier just because Grim is so much better. Like, it just gets outclassed that hard. Like, poor Wing, bro. And speaking of Wing, our last card is going to be its B Path, and this one, yeah, I mean, it's a hit and pathogen, I guess. Like, it's a very good infection aura, I guess, but ultimately, I mean, you just click the brace card and you're fine. So there's that. But this is going to wrap up this 41-minute video. Like, wow, a lot of good cards, honestly, and then there's also a lot of bad cards, but what can you do? So there you have it. That is going to be the almost finished tier list. I just need to swap this out for Snowball Barrage and we will be finished. And honestly, if I missed any other cards, please tell me in the comments, just so that way I can fix this tier list up. But for the time being, that is going to finish this one up. So thank y'all for watching. I've been Ice Gold. Be sure to like, subscribe, and leave like 50 comments for the algorithm. My Discord is down in the description if you want to chat with me some more. And I will see y'all later.